It's exactly 34 minutes past the hour. We're glad you've stayed with us. This is the Sunday edition right here on KTN News. Now, the 2018-2019 budget outlines what the government plans to do to help implement President Uhuru Kenyatta's Big Four agenda. Treasury has allocated 460 billion shillings towards the food, health, housing and manufacturing sectors. But you may have to help fund part of Uhuru's Big Four agenda through tax on mobile money and bank-to-bank money transfers. Rita Tinina reports.
Serving his second and final term, Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta is out to leave a legacy and has it all figured out in his vision for the country, his Big Four agenda, which seeks to enhance food security, realize universal healthcare and affordable housing, and spur manufacturing.
GDP and transfers to county governments.
But several things may stand in the way of his ambitious dream becoming a reality, among them legislation and money.
Mr. Speaker, we acknowledge the limited budgetary space to implement the Big Four plan.
To enhance food security and nutrition for all Kenyans by the year 2022,
I have allocated 1.4 billion for strategic food reserves, 1.9 billion for Kenya Cereal Enhancement Program, and 0.5 billion for mechanization of agriculture, and 900 million for crop diversification.
Towards realizing universal healthcare,
I have allocated 2 billion to free primary healthcare, 800 million for health insurance subsidy program, and 2.5 billion for rollout of universal health coverage. We have provided a total of 13.7 billion to further support the free maternal healthcare program.
And you may have to help fund Uhuru's healthcare vision.
I propose to introduce a Robin Hood tax of 0.05% of any amount of 500,000 shillings or more transferred through banks and other financial institutions. In addition, I have increased excise duty fee charged on money transfer services by cellular phone service providers from 10% to 12%. The revenue realized from these measures shall be used to fund universal health care.
In its affordable housing vision, the government is looking at construction of residential, police and civil servants' houses.
All out the housing program, we have provided 3 billion Kenya shillings for construction of affordable social housing units by the government and 1.5 billion for construction of housing units for police and Kenya prisons. We have also provided 1.5 billion for the civil servants housing scheme fund to support the offtake of the housing units.
To spur manufacturing, the government is proposing, among other things, to increase duty on steel, iron ore, textile, footwear, vegetable oil, and exemption of VAT on parts locally purchased or imported for the assembly of computers.
To protect the timber and furniture industry from proliferation of cheap timber products and to enhance the local production, I have introduced a specific rate of duty of $110 per metric tons on particle board.
The Big Four agenda will not be easy to implement, and the 2018-2019 budget will make all the difference in just how Uhuru's legacy vision is kick-started. Rita Tinina, KTN News.
Thank you, Rita, for that. And to help me discuss budget, Kenya's budget 2018-2019, I still have dismissed Abel Kipchumba as well as Mark Bichachi, and to our digital team, it's Bichachi, not Bichache. Yes. Bichachi, you're happy now. So this was, let me begin with you again. There are those who are saying this budget was full of, surprises. There are those who have said that it shocked them. There was no increase in corporate tax, as many people expected. They didn't target those who have, within the income bracket of 700,000 and above. What did you make out of this year's budget?
Well, several things. The CS Treasury said this is a Robin Hood budget. And one would have expected that it's the richest Kenyans who are going to fund this budget. But that's not the case. The way you've indicated, the people are considered to be earning a lot of money, which is 750,000 per month and above. did not get any significant increase in their taxation. And you know, the CS said at the National Assembly that this was because of a public outcry. I've been going through public records to find out actually which members of the public made that noise, that they didn't want that taxation increased, and I've not seen any. But any finance minister or CS in charge of Treasury normally has got a tough challenge, that he has to raise revenues. And where do you raise revenues? The easiest way to raise revenues is through taxation. And in a country like Kenya, which is almost in a recession, then it becomes a very complicated thing. When you look at, Mark, calm down, man, relax, so that we have a conversation. The person who is going to have the heaviest burden of that statement is the so-called common man. The fella in my village in Kisimo Social who uses kerosene, all of a sudden they discover that the price has gone up. The people at Gikomba Market who use mobile transfer, when they're making payments, all of a sudden the cost of transferring that money will go up. The fella who has probably gotten a contract from NYS and wants to buy a car, you know, 3,000 capacity, then the tax has been increased. And in my view, that is a challenge that any treasury boss faces all the time. So there's one opinion which says that you should actually consider reducing the levels of taxation to spur the economy so that there's a lot of increased economic activity. Well, another says you raise the taxes, people will adopt to it. And for me, my suggestion would have been that the CS should have used the opportunity of this budget to spur economic activity, because the people are going to be laid back and they're saying life is going to become so expensive. The cost of everything now will go up, because when you have that indirect taxation, the cost of services and goods going up, then invariably the cost of living goes very high. Yes. But you know, at the end of the day, effectively Kenya's Treasury Secretary is President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. And when he focuses on his legacy, he needs to be sure that the economy grows so that you have many more people joining the middle class. As it is right now, actually, I'm not even sure whether the middle class exists anymore, because we probably have the very rich and the very poor. Yes. Because the so-called middle class, all of them, if you have a frank and honest conversation with them, they tell you they survive on their credit card, which is really a big challenge. And that's what he should have addressed. And in my view, in as much as we are told that there is public participation in the preparation of this budget, maybe we need actual public participation. Because what happens with the Treasury when they're coming up with their documents, people are invited for public participation meetings at KICC. They go, they have a look at a document that they cannot even understand. Then they say these are good documents. And there's a high probability that even members of the National Assembly and the Senate, although the Senate is not active in this process, they're probably going to act as a rubber stamp. They're not going to be questioning so many things. My last point, making progress, this time around I'm not asking questions, but my making progress, I think we should adopt a zero-based budgeting. That every accounting officer should actually justify why his department or why his ministry is getting a coin. Because right now what we have is incremental budgeting. If your budget was 1 billion last year, then the next financial year you go to 1.2 billion. If you go through that budget carefully, the funds which go to leather industry, they go to amorphous parastatals, every year they keep on increasing, but you don't see the outcome. So maybe we need to be very bold and say we need a zero-based budgeting so that the accounting officers actually go through policy documents and they justify every coin they get. And if we don't do that, then it's going up the day. And my last point is, the Auditor General tells us up to a third of our budget goes to corruption. So during the next financial period, $1 trillion probably will be going to corruption. How are we going to manage that? Now, if you go through your newspapers, there's a story that the National Intelligence Agency is now going to be playing a proactive role in issues of corruption. One hopes that, in fact, the National Intelligence Agency considers corruption as a national security threat, and the people who steal taxpayers' resources will actually serve time behind bars.
Well said. Now, Abel, I think I need you to address something specific because we're almost out of time, and that has to do with the devolved government. I understand one of the big four agendas is the universal healthcare. That is by far and large a devolved function. Yes. And if you look at the amount that has been allocated for the county government, it's about 378 billion, yes, around there. Yeah. But those who are saying if you compare that with the 3.0 trillion kind of shilling budget, it's a peanut. What do you have to say about that?
Well, I think when I saw the figure, I was a bit scared as well, because healthcare is such a big issue. Actually, in the big four, it's the biggest, I think, agenda that needs to be given a lot of attention by the president. So the amount that was allocated is very small, but I'm assuming that county governments will be given a chance to look for other means of financing their healthcare system, undertakings. And that points back to what Dismas pointed out, that there was no substantial participation, especially by devolved units, in contributing to how they'd like to see the figures play out in the budget. Overall, that is, I think, the most progressive and forward-looking budget from Rotich. It's very good, I think, and if corruption, of course, is contained or controlled, it's likely to take Kenya to the next level in terms of economic standing. The unfortunate thing is, again, now, that is where the pessimism of Dismas again comes in. We always expect the best but get the worst, especially on matters corruption. As you realize, last time the kind of talk we had was very good, or the government has delivered, only for the scandals to do what? To pop out, so many of them.
Yes.
So that is the biggest tragedy. So the governors from the devolved units have to come out and, number one, make a lot of noise so that the national government can come in, maybe through some supplementary budget to support the healthcare initiatives in the counties.
Mark, how did you receive the budget?
First, let me correct something. The Kenya is not near recession. We grew at between 4.5% and 6% for the last 6-7 years of our history. Near recession, you have to be hitting 1%, 0%. Let's just be very clear. Now, on the budget, my fear is the same as my colleagues. Number one, it's a 3 trillion budget. Our recurrent expenditure is quite high. I did not hear a lot of cost-saving thoughts in the minister's speech, because one of the things that we want to do as a country is save money, especially on things like parliament and MCAs who now want to go to gyms and things like that. These are the things that we need to cut down. We cannot be paying an MCA extra money to go to the gym based on a factor that they're eating too much of our money and now they are fat. It does not make sense. Now you're eating our money, we made you fat, then we want to make you thin. It does not make sense. So we need to see a bit of cost reduction. Number two, a bit of practicality in the application of this budget. We need to find ways of supporting county governments, especially on universal healthcare, but also on finding a way of funding county governments more so that they're able to do more. A lot of these county governments do not even receive enough money to pay their wage bill. So we need to address the devolution fund. I have much more to say, but I'll cede my time.
Thank you for being generous.
Yes.
Kipchumba, your final comment as we wrap up?
On the budget 2018-2019, it's, for me, the transformative budget, as it was said, but I have a number of issues with it. But it is forward-looking. It projects a country that is ready for takeoff, a country that has the gas, the energy for going forward. But the danger in that is that it projects a country that wants to move with one segment of the population, the haves. That is the danger. But my first point would have been this. When I saw CS Rotich reading the budget, I thought we'll begin by apologizing to Kenyans and the taxpayers for the rampant and runaway corruption. That ought to have been his first sentence, opening speech. An apology to this country and to the taxpayers for letting us down, because we read more about corruption than Big Four. We read more about corruption than politics. So that ought to have been the first line. Having said that, the budget lacked also creativity, because he said a number of very good things in terms of funding and moving forward. Very good things. I think the budget, we should not limit it to the capitation given directly to the counties. Look at the money going to healthcare. That is a devolved function, but national government has taken care of that. Look at the money going to incentives to nurture industrialization. Those are monies directly, they'll go to the counties. So for us to limit our thinking to the 300 billion is a fallacy, is a mistake. Because at the end of the day, this budget will be consumed at the county level.
Yes.
Maybe the expenditure will be at national level, but the person who will feel the net effect is at the county level. But a few things that need to be worked on in this Rotich economics. One, we need to embrace ideas in terms of budgeting that enlarge the tax bracket. Look at, and by enlarging the tax bracket, we'll just be responding to the 9 canons of taxation by Ian Smith. One, the diversification of it, making sure that there is equity in taxation. We cannot say we are increasing money. The people who consume M-Pesa services and all these money transfer are the poor in the society. they are the people who are the lowest ranks.
Yes.
When we increase this, we increase their cost of doing business, we increase the cost of living. Look at another sector which it caught me thinking. We are scrubbing off by default the agents, insurance agents and brokers in this country. We have around 10,400 insurance agents and brokers. When we scrub off these people, there are employments that will go with it. There is a whole population that will be disfranchised. What are we doing to it? We are not, our ideas in terms of opening the tax bracket should not be ideas as Winston Churchill said, we are trying to lift ourselves inside a bucket using the handle.
Yes.
That should be, we should work on that. And the other point is this, the National Treasury should also help counties. I think there is a lack of ideological generation in terms of counties generating more finances.
Yes.
Which is not a doing of Rotich, it is a doing of counties. Counties have put in their minds that the only money they will expect is the money from national government. They are not being procreative in creating ways to generate more capital and to bring more people in the tax bracket. There is a lot in terms of the young people. They have a lot of ideas. The counties can tap into them and get more resources and expand the industry.
Yes.
And I think Rotich has a good team. It can, if they can collaborate with counties, we can, the deficit is not too much.
Sure.
500 billion. Not
Sure, Kipchumba, I think we have to end it there. Kipchumba Karori, many thanks for your input. He's a political strategist. And then we have Mark Bichachu, who's a political communication strategist. Abel Oyeyo is a political analyst, as well as Dismus Mukua, who is a political risk analyst. Many thanks, gentlemen, for your input. Once again, happy Father's Day. I hope you're going to have a very good day moving on. And that brings us to the end of our program today. Many thanks for watching. My name is Yusuf Ibrahim. Have a very good day. Remember, we still have the weekend at 1 with all the latest from not just in Kenya, but across this continent, and of course, the very latest across the world. Bye-bye, and have a very good day.